Straight in front of us. I got it. Just stay in the cart. I did get it.
I have no idea why this bow was in my office. In the late 2000s, first-person shooters were a dime a dozen. But while we had games like Halo and Call of Duty paving the way for immersive first-person shooter campaigns and multiplayer experiences, there was a different kind of game coming in with its unique art style and gameplay to bring a different kind of experience to the genre. And that game was called Borderlands.
Next stop, Firestone Depot. Time to gather up your stuff. Who's getting off the bus?
Released in 2009, being developed by Gearbox Software and published by 2K Games, Borderlands was coming on the scene with a cel-shaded art style and a looter I've said that so many times and I can't get it right. Looter shooter style gameplay to the first-person shooter genre, and nowadays, you know, it's not that surprising, but that term wasn't really synonymous with first-person shooters at the time until this game came out.
Have I got a story for you?
Whether you've actually played Borderlands or not, there's almost no mistaking this art style. You've probably seen it at some point, and the reason it really sticks out is because it's pretty unique. Now, the cel-shaded art style isn't new. We've had this cartoony art style all the way back on the Dreamcast with games like Jet Set Radio, and even in first-person shooters in games like 13. However, it seems like very often games either do this really well or they do it completely wrong, and we only get this cel-shaded art style on occasion. And I think Borderlands did this right, because this isn't really an art style that you can just slap onto a game and call it good. I would argue that it takes a lot of effort to get something like this right. Interestingly enough, there's even gameplay that shows we almost didn't get this cel-shaded art style from Borderlands. There's no question that Borderlands takes inspiration from movies like Mad Max and takes that exotic, grungy art style and puts it into more of a cartoony format in this cel-shaded appearance. The reason this art style works so well is because the game rarely ever takes itself too seriously. Every enemy has these dumb jokes that they're saying as they're coming at you.
I got one I've been saving for you.
You got Claptrap spitting the same 2 lines of dialogue over and over and over.
Let's get down, come on everybody, check me out, I'm dancing!
And it's funny the first time when he does it, and it's kind of cute the second time, but after the third time, come on, why didn't we give Claptrap more lines in the beginning?
Oh, come on, get down!
But before we get too much into that, while we're talking about the art direction of the game, I noticed while doing a little bit of research that it seems that the directors for Borderlands 1 are different from the ones in Borderlands 2. I didn't know that. If you're familiar with the series and you can elaborate that, please leave it in the comments, because I think that's really interesting to this game's design.
And we're one step closer to the vault.
On the surface, Borderlands is like any other first-person shooter. Fight waves of enemies, use guns to fight different waves of enemies, and go through the levels. I'm not really selling the game, am I? Okay, so the aim of Borderlands was to take more of these RPG style elements and fit them into a first-person shooter. So your progression is heavily based around what character you pick, what attributes that they specialize in, and also what loot you get from progression. That's a big thing in the game.
You should open this storage device. There may be something inside to help against those bandits.
So you start Borderlands off with 4 different characters. These 4 different characters are your classes, and these will benefit you based on the type of playstyle that you want to have. One might be good at sniping, while the other one is good at brute strength. My favorite is Lilith, that has the phase shift ability that allows you to do the Apex Legends ghost thing for a few seconds at a time. This seemed kind of OP at times, but I appreciate it. I like being able to phase halfway through a level. And as you rank up, you rank your character up, and that gives you abilities to improve your attributes, like that phase shift ability. You can make it last longer. You can inflict more damage based on your abilities that you're using, things of that nature. And this almost taps into a little bit of that Call of Duty progression element, where you're just trying to get that little bit of XP to get that extra rank, and whenever you rank up, you're able to upgrade a new ability on your class. And if you're not upgrading a new ability on your class, you're getting new weapons that you find from loot, so they constantly try to keep you engaged. You can see this is kind of where those RPG elements are starting to creep in a little bit on the surface.
Nice. I got none of that fucking XP.
I really appreciate this little intro sequence that has you basically put on the heads-up display unit and everything kind of loads in, so you see your health in the corners and your stamina and all that. I don't know, that's a really neat touch to kind of give further explanation of the HUD thing.
I detect that your Echo device is fully functioning. This way, please.
The one thing you'll really notice about Borderlands right off of the bat is that it's very grindy like an RPG. You start out as a level 1 slime and you want to make your way up to a level 100 boss. That's how Mafia works. You can do very minimal character customization here, like with your hair color and your clothes.
Excellent. Now that your DNA is registered, you have the best in horrific death and dismemberment insurance.
That's all you really need to know as far as the characters go. They give you really minimal backstories, if any, on them. And that kind of translates into the story as well.
Get off my bus.
So in Borderlands, you are what's called a vault hunter. You arrive into this deserted wasteland on a bus with 3 other people. Like I said, there's 4 different classes. And your main driving force through the story is to find the vault, this big loot score that everybody in this wasteland is going after. Your goal as the vault hunter is to interact with anybody and everybody that can help you achieve this goal and push you further to get to the vault.
Hey, is Lockie always sending you on missions that, like, destroy my stuff? Seriously, I think he's putting bad guys and runners just so you can get on to blowing them up.
A lot of the main characters that you meet are voice acted. You'll get lines of dialogue as you're playing. The game is very campy. It can be pretty silly at times. Sometimes the jokes don't land, but for the most part, it's just a harmless, fun game.
Hey, Scooter here. My runner may not look like a flush rider, but
You're in the wasteland, so you're coming across psychopaths that are trying to take you out. Imagine half of the enemies in Borderlands basically being like the grunts in Halo. Just silly, completely ridiculous characters that are just there to serve as a shooting gallery for you. Because that's mainly what the game is all about. The story isn't anything too deep and engaging and something you're really going to be wanting to sink your teeth into. The main driving force of the game is the gameplay.
Pay more attention next time.
This game coins the phrase looter shooter because outside of progressing your own character up, you're wanting to get the best loot that you can. Whenever you take down a big boss enemy, he's gonna drop loot. Some of these items may be more rare weapons or items that you can't get through normal gameplay. Maybe it's something you won't come across so often. Like for instance, you have your regular health bar and you also have a shield which basically works like a Halo shield. You get a certain amount of points for your shield and once it gets knocked down, you gotta wait for it to regenerate. And if your shield's all the way down, you'll start taking damage to your health. You can find different shields while you're out in the wild and you can get them from loot drops that'll have more health or they'll have special abilities to them, like when your shield gets damaged, it'll put out a burst of fire. You also have grenade modifiers that changes the way your grenades work. Maybe they work like a bouncing Betty. Maybe you throw 1 grenade and it shoots out 3 grenades. But in Borderlands, the most important loot for them to get right is the weapons because there's like thousands of different weapon combinations that you can get from loot in the game. Enemies are dropping weapons. You can buy limited time weapons from the vending machines. No, they're not microtransactions. And all of these weapons will just have random attributes to them. Just like with the shield and grenade modifiers, the weapons have modifiers. Maybe they shoot out acid. Maybe they shoot out incendiary bullets or explosive bullets.
The acid eats through armor and flesh in no time at all, and can spread to other nearby enemies.
Maybe the rocket launcher can semi-auto fire 5 rockets at a time. You never really know what you're gonna get when you're picking up a weapon, and that's one of the most fun things about Borderlands. It's one of the things that makes the game really unique as well.
That is awesome!
Because you just get all of these crazy weird combinations that wouldn't work in any other first-person shooter, or at least any other first-person shooter at the time of this coming out. It doesn't really matter how ridiculous it is, they're just gonna put it in for the fun of it, because you're gonna be spending a lot of time shooting, grinding, and looting. Like I said, the game is very grindy, like an RPG would be. Every enemy has a health bar above them as you're hitting them, taking life points off of them, and you can see those points dropping in real time. And a lot of these guys are just complete bullet sponges, and that's due to their level. Different missions will suggest you beat a certain level to progress in them. If you try to jump into a mission that has level 20 enemies and you're level 13, you see a little skull above their head, you're not gonna be having a very good time because they're just gonna be eating those bullets and wiping you out immediately.
Dude, you died. Oh my god. It's just, he's here. He's at the spawn. Dude, he's spawn camping us. I promise I don't remember it being this bad.
A lot of people may not enjoy shooting waves of bullet spongy enemies, but the game is based on you getting all of this different loot and all of these different weapons that work in different ways to keep you engaged with shooting these waves of bullet spongy enemies. I just got this insane looking shotgun. What did you get? I got this crazy combination. It's a gun with a dumbbell on it. It looks like something you would find out of Dead Rising. But I don't really think that's the point of Borderlands, you know? The point is just to get in and have a good time with the different weapon varieties that they offer. Difficulty is definitely there. Sometimes it's scaled to the rank that you're at, and sometimes it just seems a little unfair, but that's what the grinding aspect is there for, baby.
Interesting fact. Based on your current stress patterns, I calculate a 94.3% chance that you will encounter an unfortunate death experience.
This is great.
The level variety in Borderlands is okay. It kind of works like an open world game with different hub areas. You got the deserted wasteland with your base camp. Then you got the frosty wasteland. And then you have the wasteland where people are driving the cars. Like I said, this is very Mad Max inspired. So if you're into that aesthetic and that type of art style, you'll probably really like it. There's a decent amount of verticality in the game to keep it interesting, but it doesn't seem like they go too crazy on shaking up the aesthetic at times. Gameplay wise, the shooting aspect of it is pretty good, as it should be, because you're going to be spending a lot of time doing it.
I got him.
Since you have these big sprawling wastelands, you get vehicles to traverse these areas, and these vehicles will have a turbo boost and mounted guns and rockets to help you wipe out waves of enemies as you're going along to earn yourself a little extra XP as you're doing it. And this almost taps into a little bit of that Call of Duty progression element where you're just trying to get that little bit of XP to get that extra rank, and whenever you rank up, you're able to upgrade a new ability on your class. And if you're not upgrading a new ability on your class, you're getting new weapons that you find from loot, so they constantly try to keep you engaged. And you may be asking yourself, you're exploring these wide open sprawling environments with 4 different class systems. Do these classes work together in any way? Is there any kind of multiplayer? And yes, that's one of the main driving forces of Borderlands.
Fuck, that didn't work at all.
As the class system would suggest, you can play with up to 4 other people in a party, and you guys can progress through basically the entire game together.
This knife on my gun do more than shooting him with the gun.
This is the double-edged sword that puts me at a crossroads with Borderlands, because I think it's simultaneously the best and the worst thing about Borderlands. Borderlands is at its best when you're just having mindless fun shooting waves of enemies with friends, right? And you could use the argument that, well, any game is more fun when you're playing it with friends, but you can tell that Borderlands was really tailor-made to play with other people.
What the fuck?
This becomes a problem for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't have friends that have the time to just sit through 30 hours of this game with me to play through the story. Now I'm alone in this barren wasteland, and all I have is this talking trash can.
Wow, you're a
Oh, come on, Wally, I was just joking with you. Secondly, it just makes it less of a fun experience when it comes to the single player aspect of it. Yes, you can technically play the entire game in the single player, but here's where you hit the walls. You know that level requirement I was talking about for you to progress through certain levels, because otherwise it'll be insanely hard? When I'm playing by myself, since I've ranked up to this point, I'm at a position where I have to be like level 25 to beat this story mission, and I'm level 23. So I would have to grind all the way up to level 25, which requires a lot of XP, and it requires me to just grind my way through side missions where I'm just collecting this item, or I'm taking this, bringing it over here, or I'm just wiping out this amount of enemies, or I'm searching for different parts of a gun to build to take to somebody. And to be quite frank, these fetch quests and just mindless shooting gallery missions become a lot less fun when it's just you whittling away at enemies' health so you have the ability to progress. When you're playing a game like this in single player mode, it starts to fall back a little bit more on its story, which Borderlands 1 at least doesn't really emphasize much of. Yeah, there's story there, but I can't progress through it without grinding heavily. It almost kind of feels like I'm playing a free-to-play game with the amount of grinding that I'm doing. Gearbox software, I need 3 time saver stat. Sir, this is the Papa John's. What do you mean you don't sell microtransactions in this game? And this is why I like doing these retrospective videos, to kind of tell you about what it's like to play a game like the original Borderlands today. Because they upped the graphics and you can play it in the new enhanced Game of the Year edition version on any console of your choosing. Maybe this is different on the Switch, you know? You can play Borderlands 1 on the Switch now. Maybe there's a pool of players there, but on the PC, for whatever reason, I just can't find a game, and I didn't do any research. I don't know if there's a specific network trick that I have to do to find more players, but anytime I searched for players, couldn't find any on Borderlands 1. That leaves me to grind the single player by myself, and not really fun to do by yourself, to be honest, after a certain point at least. What's it like being out here all by yourself as a robot? Without those friends, the game really starts to show its age. And it also does that in a couple of other ways. The gunplay is good, and the cel-shaded art style holds up incredibly well. This game will probably still look good 20 years from now, but one thing that cel-shaded art style just can't hold up is the overall gameplay, which can be pretty jank at times.
Because you gotta revive him because he's trying to teach you how to revive.
I'm leaking.
Oh, fucking damn it.
It fares a little bit better with controller, but you can tell that this game was definitely designed first with controller in mind, because navigating menus on the PC version over here, total pain in the ass. There were plenty of times I just got random frame drops in this game, especially in the multiplayer. There were other times in the multiplayer where this happened to me and my friend that was on a totally different desktop setup that was also a higher end setup. And we got to this point where we would play for about 30 minutes or an hour, and then just randomly the game would start slogging to like 20-30 frames per second. It would feel really, really bad. I mean, not even 20 frames per second, probably more like 15. So the game just kind of turned into a slideshow for seemingly no reason. You know, we weren't in some weird section of the map. We were just like in the hub area. You could select 144 hertz for your resolution in the settings, but it would always revert back to 60. But I think I was still running it above 60 hertz. If I tried to move my mouse around on a map or something, it would only like do one section of the map. If I'm running the game at 4K, it's doing 1080p square for me to move the mouse cursor around in, and it would get stuck in that box unless I played the game in full screen. None of this was completely game breaking, but it was definitely a little jank. Also, in the gameplay, there's just sections of the map that you'll get hung up on. Like if you try to run up a slightly sloped area, your character might just get stuck.
It doesn't feel like there's a wall in front of me, but I can't go past this point. What's up with that?
The gravity and traversal of the map could just feel a little bit off. Sometimes it felt like you couldn't jump over fences that you should be able to jump over, or get into areas that you should be able to get into. Sometimes there's good verticality in the maps, and there's hidden loot crates that you can find from doing a little bit of exploration, but sometimes it just kind of felt like you were grounded and you couldn't traverse as easily as you probably should be able to. Just felt a little finicky at times, especially in the indoor areas.
He's here. He's at the spawn.
Speaking of indoor areas, one of the first missions that you have to do crams you in these tight, congested hallways. Both me and my friend were doing this, and maybe it was because the game intended for us to do the side content first and rank up a little bit, but we jumped into the main story mission, and we must have grinded on this, constantly dying for like 2 hours.
Yeah, hard would like imply that there's some difficulty.
Because the first couple of story missions in the game out-level you with enemies that are much higher ranked than you, or just slightly higher than you, to make it to where they're just complete bullet sponges. And that became pretty damn frustrating. I dealt with this both in solo and in co-op. I did this 3 different times, as a matter of fact. I did this one solo, one co-op with one friend, and one co-op with another friend, and that part of the game was definitely a grind.
He's at the spawn.
You know, this game was kind of a first of its kind, kind of an up-and-coming title. They were figuring out the kinks, but we kind of had to deal with those kinks. And this is the final product that we're left with, and that's what I'm talking about today. In a way, Borderlands kind of walks so Destiny could run. It really paved the way for the first-person looter-shooter genre, and it left itself plenty of room to improve on with future iterations, but the original one's a little hard to play if you're not playing with other people. But what about those future titles? Did they really improve the gameplay formula that much? Should I give them a look? Let me know in the comments. Go check out some extra behind the scenes content on my members tab that you can access by clicking the link in the description. And if you're still here, I just kind of want to give you guys a thank you, man. This past year, my content has really started to form into a style of its own, and it's really taken off. I remember when I used to get barely 100 views a video, and I feel like any video I upload could still do that, but even when I upload content that I don't expect to get any views, like the VR video I did last, it still did pretty damn well for my channel, and I really do appreciate it. I know a lot of you guys stick around in the community tab and the comments, and I just want to say thanks and let you know that your support doesn't go unseen, and it really means a lot to me. But enough of that corny shit, man. I got videos to edit, I got behind the scenes stuff and green screen stuff to do, so if you haven't seen more of my other content, go check it out. We out of here, baby.
He's at the spawn.